I started out serenading my sarin wrap, but it quickly seared into my own outer layers, and I was staring into a stained abyss with no visible termination and dissolving into salty mucus as I did so. It was as exhausting to contemplate as it was terrifying to ignore. My pants are a panel, and are the words worn out? Or do we wheel them out each fall to wheedle a new crew of gruesome granary birds and scullery weevils and weasels, and we bear our boredom on our sleeves and bleasels and pre-limelight? I drew a direct scone on my biscuit tin, but ever after my diversion differed in every way and scored accordingly. Lion matrices grieve in the sea light fire time. The next day I scrawled out of bed and deformed my hammock laterally, exposing the planks beneath, under which I had emplaced my graddest treasure beveling. I took a trowel and 6 levers and worked inward from every angle, ignoring no facet of the isohelix as I beveled and leveled and troweled and leveled, and we breaded the boat and trawled the canal, where operations uncovered an unidentified male and 16 identified phone call, and we Turk tines hanging them on brig Ridley hooks that make the fishes scream in their dreams, and we took me shearman, say. We queemied that quarnies to reclaim cornies, yo no. Gripe and smeal the loop beckons, and so we used divers knots to back-end the quapses. We toyed and tied them to the post with all the capsies and bodies, gan to sloidy along the loose schnow. They're dragging Bert the fishing line, 'twas bursting blowed vessies, in myrrh handaloonies, permaloons, Swede beaded up on my forehead, Bert on over a poster, give uppies, so I crept creeping along Alusia, and next term I yoinked up on that line. How the bockies blurped back and rose up and rise up, and they flowed, and before I can let go of them, fishing line round my hands 'twas poiling the monkeys. Up, they had floated me into the sky, about breaking to blaze from Acca's dur. Oitmospheres was frictioning mer purdy birdie, and all it's there's the boiny painies, it hurt my hort nozzles to pump from the fear blurdy curds. Brats dat svingoddies, gross have idea. It's an ed so very good, so are good. Dortel ed yos after heoth, so I yanked roll hard on my fishy lilies, even though ouch, it hurt Bert to do dolls, ouch. Bert managed yet to do it, and so all the deed we had one on ID mail and switched between phone crawls, if you'll rub memory oh. Shall ye Emberly member about that? Though a wide deed, and I pulled them all downies and draped them over my toilet. It fast wounded, now derg nows, cuts no testicles. Bert dem Sleventine crumbend. Birdie bodies absorb the further worsening of mine flamey crondichion. Z verbal blurblid frast after that, so meal crooned. Royd 30 pointy wheel, stranded on the moon, and a moon blee your crumb dern crystal mean. And these me yoon monsters made me maddies, and I strangled her with my wishy. Why? And they didn't like to eat. And then I ate them all, and puked them all, and ate the puke and puked again. And then I took a giant hammer, and I pounded that puke into the moon rocks, and I pounded those pukey moon rocks into moon sand, and I shat in all the bloody pukey moon rock sand, and then I puked again, but that last puking wasn't part of the plan. It just happened as a consequence of how much shit and puke and blood and awful and shit and puke there was. And for a second I was like, is puking all over this gonna run my plan? And I had to kind of come down off the adrenaline ledge I had worked myself up into and talk myself through it. But I quickly realized that, if anything, this unintended puke step in the process could only enhance my revenge scenario. So I put a little wooden rink around the gross sand, and it quickly froze into a skate rink, and I was like, all the daddies that make up the rink of this ice. I hope you can feel the skates scratching across every inch of your remaining nervous system somehow, even in death. I skated around like a cross between Charlie Brown and the Walking in My Shoes music video. I even wore Plague Doctor mask like a birdie and slept on top of Snoopy's doghouse screaming about repentance. I eventually turned the undifferentiated mune dust that didn't have blood and puke in it at least into a fully functioning rotor-rocket and gently evaporating vapor scrunch, and I reached toward to Earth at last. Boim, sweet horim. Pendy walked down the empty hallway, playing games with the echo of her steps. It wasn't too long before we wilted to hear it, because the zombies didn't mess around. She were like buzzed at by the zombies, and soon they were swarming all around her. These bees were sure into Zumba, thought Pendy before breaking out in an all-out choreography match featuring Spine Williams, Pseudo Doki Doki Doku, and breakup artist Escaped Con Johnson, who would be featured in Mommy the Scene 2 years later and running. Prompt. Marname, Pilsdorn, Hampton, Wade, Brinsley, Greenpark, and I have green, Falding broccoli for 62 summers. When I say trust old Dorney class, I am gritting Yule Friedweiss. I swerve for Riven Stavers. I spray Lloyd Murgut, who Aaron Evers, let's hollow out that name. And Davies Vinmar, meditation making me think his name were hollowed out. Oh, has a hole in it, and he were named God, which is an O-A-Day pretzel farmer. Midas touch or not, this clambake reject has broiled his last brisket for me.
What is the sense of this public flagellation, Cramedy?
Garen, don't talk to me about pubic flatulation, Burherp. Your daddy might have used to be my middle school principal, but you ain't even my freegun acquaintance, Brever, and I don't gotta tweet you anyway, but what I wanna, and I wanna tell you that you're ignored all goodies I don't want.
So there it is. Trove it all, you'll be spewing these is not fit for door nailing and whole tone scolding from your own mum. You can't sit here una fix straight. Get your doan ain't just gurt you'll gurt the blust banana and nenak and uni, but you'll have to once or fear what is those deed and say it.
Shred your dirt, Guidles. John Murk Widdies, but I'll pop the punchies. When you'll rev up, a beef licketist pleat. Split and plankton dorked it up hard D-Day. Thine your mummies spoited and spurted and splutered and gurted out your fold in your veals and your bawdries and crundy Hansons and Hansom's prockets and gleed christening queep, Bison and Dak, will crumb barber early at ye. With fish, depositrations and eel crust, your eye bull is dwinced and glassed at him strunst. Eel pea, be dearly with ye life.
Gwai, I movement. Fellas, who's he was it that you'll be trustling about? Din feet birdwing yesifs, you'll krill batchiver, you'll kill yum, Urania's bwitchies and British and Bleedish and Greedish and Hall more and Moab gwar. Flee Briftern gwyn higher tamishti, Stawapid dink sleed shwed more gwindishness.
Hesh, o you'll quillies you, do your her and duviel greep dossening and dazed whistler bump workies and walkies. Deedle and krilling up and champing smashies and chunkies and bunkies and brunkies and donkey a danker crinking and chunkritterern and lorning heen dumpus and crumpus and bulgu gluggerburn and bin fwinkies and donkeys, fwinkies and donkey fleeb gore speeditioning sweezelker. Mukral yesterfein kan pangmingling ding wongeros and glungy vein poop and grip trach knocks and bockles under. Woo, I prayed to the G-Slot and he guy felt calm down like a lasting gusnug and pringle penglies and working bundle greased and glass nostinning.
Fiemble brawl with the Femi trolls ring my wrangle balls by the Phoebe form loosenings and Gwest breastling gurn fwingles. My cranklangers are a bigger figure of woggler bogglers and burger curdlers and britter buiskies and grundle bloompeners and frample kale. And that's when Muramoidi cleaved heisterning and rehest crationing.
Buckets twins and Cresty souls birdled, quest winning and burst a newer harshida and quavalcados. Real crescioners blist and istel dwell anni papia pearly and clurs and blessed unia holes and a wahi hos and wrinkle bolly book dreshnur.
We screen hampen, urnur, twesgrost and flank wahik and chide wolsos and vink crepuderders v, musli schwank gerberler twin grozor perner, winkle bangle, for where a fayor and fear fia yid widjade Mr. Norvet quepulur buin boguners and shrayim kopuners drencheded faf when yours are setting blost redded unis, caslesti shish, moas dying glehel, cernat, fwexties, ma'ira, the grankies, crunk quimburder, queaselbos and worse, timberbutter dershins, blaster and pedros, and himi hoip.
Glurk in hoinks, and sanyan gwexels, and gispadidits, quaver equal sign earned quavy and urguavi guivis, durink bliddies and umberides, and include volubians yerbos, durnt your krill mur, my mishwam some deaded, ekid your wily d, and breed out all over de flower. Hemp swishies and spwashy and quist d-door fweems, heel yump,
Grail quailing, the blurmud shank, crystal labiate, heidens heave shush havenly, ist her and stars, and schooled her, norm in the noid school, to squeamiers, rule loudies, from it all squinched, when sheck crenchitude, sosh sith, sipush blunking.
We cranked for the breast, but plot for the worst. I'm a crawling comet named Blam, and you are a gonet cleaned worst, and I am a bunny socket and wally srock, and sea sogs and creel reeling, hunked dreadfully, like a liverwire listing in the sea, shracking foo, and blappies, dromers, friendly poweb, and durlieb, kirstening blue, plumpers, gwister mean. I had wedge fervor and sought to enjoin all lurk-minded folks that could be burrs waded to full over me. I screeched to a halt, scanning crowd visuals for crime individuals. I had a unique ability to see what different people did, or were by looking right at it at a ham time, what the time had a hard ham had, when we came hard by it, and we had to reduce our in-camp harbor, so we divested of our thwart Crosman and dwelt Nortman, and he kept kissing his doctor until he wound up in jail, and he bailed on his own crow at the trial. And now the trail of criminality lurks in the dark shadows of the Sandalbreak Committee, infused with investor capital and firewordlessness, and even a tiny hand napkin didn't process the flea shutter like the Dinkflawed. He had his own crassles back then, and we buried the cabin where Tay Cabin was pudding, and we all ate puddings and griddle brisket, and we had that, and we toaster ovened our way to a happy loaf in what they always say in the big way. Time of it all is happy loaf, slappy oaf, and we pour Chinese kernels into the super army to become part of the popcorn committee with the ultimate sign-off ability at a wax and shoe, and we will show you how by eliminating the dangerous concavity in your judicious ovoid, his robes appointed by no less than the full set of all 1916ths and 6015 had a baby the other week, but it was merely abdominal and thus went unrecognized as we passed through the carpal tunnel. Commodore 64. Corridor of errors and comedy of plugs. We boiled our bones down to the core to shriek the hyssop ledge like an onion emerald and how the sky fell open. It wouldn't be tears that poured through. Not at this point. We have a secret lizard and he didn't come when you called him. He turned the peanut butter cannon cam on and scrolled quickly up. He burst his news keep into credible cracks and the etch fissure fouled the air with the sweet release of breath it cloyed our lungs adob. He didn't shut a horse down for nearly as long as he had been a wee spun hoy-wee, and all the cars did beam and all the dread leaked out like a fire hose, and the spray of the salt breath beckons and breakers beam and bristle with the lunch knife of door knocker window pounder glass relative beacon bowl Bowery bull, and we had a dern grozzle and a glint cowseling frowned gleep null. Bert it weren't he's clagging and cracking all, and we rode 2 long longbooks about book lungs and the spider's crepitating claws carved it in shreds we could not hope to reassemble, and that was a big old bummer for all of us. We didn't know how much Marcia Schrashman would depreciate our sewage folio, but the data records were a base that kept us capping the new heights and big heights, twin tweem and bluish quamp, and he would that could uncrypt his visual bird it. Only ween he did, and it hurt him hort. Lorsties Lidl, Bert the strawberry gourd, were a whole clore bony beasties, and his magnetic tick drew first blood with the iron lens engravement filamentous dementia klaxon, tagging yurts, and then urit, kunda tyween rollock erndies, hoidaploices, glistening breams of ugly fangs pushing through your sick from the inside. It's like a creeknell dorking for metamedia corn-embezzled crane, screaming like a forlorn heron gull creeling for the shempt Dorstedt Jornkies.